What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys got an opportunity last night to tune in to the third Democratic debate. First thing I want to say is I was actually really thrilled that they actually broadcast this thing right on YouTube, made it a lot easier for people to find. I just checked, it has like over 2 million views right now. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning the night after, or the morning after. Didn't have a live chat, but that's okay. You know, it was available, and for that, I'm definitely thankful. Today, what I want to do is actually start going over Andrew Yang's performance. And I'm just going to start off by being honest. I'm going to be objective. I want to talk about his individual responses. He didn't speak a ton. I think he spoke for, a little bit under 10 minutes. So everybody is not digging into this stuff and really going onto Yang's website and checking out policies. Everyone's not doing that. Every American has their own opinion based on what they hear. Going into this, I dropped a video basically saying that I was looking for Yang to make a big statement. He kind of positioned himself as somebody who's, a gentleman, you know what I mean? He's not gonna, get into the bickering between candidates. He's made, direct challenges to President Trump, but he hasn't really done that with any of his Democratic challengers. It's honorable again, but I just feel like he needs to start doing that. He really needs to start gaining ground on people. And as Biden continues to slip, as I think he will again after last night's performance, he's got to make that move forward. I saw somewhere someone had posted that the Yang gang has kind of become like an echo chamber, and I definitely feel a little bit of that. It's got to be more than just talking to the people who are already aware of Andrew Yang. In order for the Democrats to win this election, Yang specifically, he's going to have to be able to get people who are Republicans, former Trump supporters, people who are undecided, Bernie supporters, Warren supporters. Like, he's got to get everybody together if he wants to defeat Trump. I think a lot of people blindly believe that Trump is going to lose this election because of whatever approval ratings he has, but we all know it's difficult to beat incumbents. But I also believe that a lot of people who are actually planning on voting for Trump probably just won't tell you so. I don't feel like the Democrats are running a particularly strong field, which I think doesn't really help their chances of defeating Trump in the upcoming election. So everything that's happening right now is extremely important. Like I said, with Biden being the front runner, I just don't feel confident with Biden. They're saying Warren is trending up. I don't really see her beating Trump. Sanders, a lot of people have issues with Sanders. So to me, I just don't feel like those three would even really beat Trump anyway. The numbers say otherwise, and I'm not going to argue that. So we'll see. Just remember how sure everyone was that Donald Trump would lose the last election, and he's our president. So like I said, I'm going to be fairly objective. So if you can't take any criticism, this is not going to be the video for you. And I'm just going to be honest. I heard Yang at the Asian Pacific, I think it was Asian Pacific conference or something like that. He had said that he got like a 1200 or something on his SAT as a 12-year-old. I'm pretty sure I didn't do much better than that when I was 18. Yang is obviously brilliant, and I don't think that I could have done a much better job. With that said, I don't feel like that doesn't mean that there wasn't room for improvement, and that's what I'm going to speak about. So as we're getting ready to go into the debate, there was a hashtag trending, which was Yang's debate surprise. And again, because, we're Yang gang, we hear about things that are going on. We heard about things he's been working on, something about a hologram. He mentioned something about wearing sandals and crowd surfing and gold chains. Like, there were a lot of things floating around, a lot of speculation. And, it was just kind of a fun thing that we were all kind of engaged in. And Yang has kind of made a name for himself so far this election cycle for doing these splashy things and doing these things to get media attention when he's pretty much being excluded from the conversation anyway. So that's just the foundation. So let's just start getting into his opening remarks.
In America today, everything revolves around the almighty dollar. Our schools, our hospitals, our media, even our government. It's why we don't trust our institutions anymore. We have to get our country working for us again instead of the other way around. We have to see ourselves as the owners and shareholders of this democracy rather than inputs into a giant machine.
At the very beginning, I was on the edge of my seat. Honestly, I was very thrilled. I loved his direction. I could see him leaning towards his humanity first approach, where he's like, basically everything about our American life is revolving around money, and I'm different. I'm trying to change that. So that's where I felt like he was going. I was really excited. I'd kind of forgot about the Yang's debate surprise. And then he dropped the he's going to be giving a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month to 10 American families.
When you donate money to a presidential campaign, what happens? The politician spends the money on TV ads and consultants, and you hope it works out. It's time to trust ourselves more than our politicians. That's why I'm going to do something unprecedented tonight. My campaign will now give a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month for an entire year to 10 American families, someone watching this at home right now. If you believe that you can solve your own problems better than any politician, go to yang2020.com and tell us how $1,000 a month will help you do just that. This is how we will get our country working for us again, the American people.
And I know a lot of people love this. I saw that people were saying that his Twitter numbers went through the roof after this. And I'm glad, and I hope that that really did happen. I hope that really did resonate. But I have to be realistic, okay? Yang is at 5% at best. He needs big movement. So if that translated to contributions or people who are now going to vote for him, that's great. But from what I heard, it really came off like a gimmick. And it didn't help that you could hear Kamala Harris and a couple of others kind of chuckling in the background.
It's original, I'll give you that.
First issue I have is that he never specifically said automation. He never specifically said what a freedom dividend is. And going back to the echo chamber comment, it was like he was talking to us instead of talking to people who may not know who he was, which I think was which I feel like was just a misstep, you know what I mean? I really feel like he needed to say, that's why I'm proposing giving every American $1,000 a month. Like, I feel like it was there. I feel like the foundation for what he wanted to say was there. I just didn't feel like he really connected it in the best way possible. And like I said, it honestly came off like a gimmick. There were definitely quite a few people who seemed to get it, who totally understood what he was saying, but there are also quite a few people who seem to just not be interested. This whole giving away $1,000 is not a new concept. It's something that he's currently doing right now, which I think is great as he's trying to, I think what he's doing is kind of having that case study so he can kind of always call back to, hey, I've already donated to this family. This is what they're telling me currently. I think that works, but to kind of announce it as a contest giveaway in the middle of the debate, I didn't like it, you know what I mean? And that's just my personal opinion. Everybody isn't about the $1,000 a month. Everybody doesn't know what the freedom dividend is. He also kind of alluded to the fact that usually campaign contributions, go into ads and things like that. I also wish he had really said specifically that rather than do that, this is what I'm going to choose to do with the campaign contributions I've gotten so far. Now in hindsight, realizing how much of a limited opportunity he had, I feel like if he had really tied everything together, this could have been a much stronger opening statement. So after that, I remember kind of wondering, man, when is he going to speak again? Because he didn't speak again until maybe 30 minutes later when he finally got his opportunity to speak on healthcare.
We all have a better vision for healthcare than our current president, and I believe we're talking about this the wrong way. As someone who has run a business, I know that our current healthcare system makes it harder to hire people, makes it harder to give them benefits and treat them as full-time employees. You instead pretend they're contractors.
This whole evening just felt different for Yang. Like, it really felt like he was being, I guess we'll say, more serious. Like, he seemed more like a politician tonight than any other performance I've seen him have, which I will say is kind of refreshing because I feel like on that serious stage, like, he needs to appeal to a broader audience, but at the same time, I feel like he was far less specific than I've ever seen him. He starts talking about he's an entrepreneur. I thought that was a great start. And typically, I feel like this is where he would have immediately started mentioning his policies. He would have said, this is why I'm not for raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, because it would be more difficult for businesses, and that's why I want to go ahead and give everyone $1,000 a month, bringing back the freedom dividend. This also would have given him an opportunity to bring in automation. Like, I just feel like there was so much there. And again, it would have really helped to differentiate him from everyone else because everyone tonight just seemed really general. There just was not a lot of substance tonight. It was just a lot of, I'm the best politician, I can make the best speech. There wasn't a lot of policy.
It's harder to change jobs. It's certainly harder to start a business. The pitch we have to make to the American people is we will get the healthcare weight off of your backs and then unleash the hopes and dreams of the American people.
Senator Booker.
Now, I am Asian, so I know a lot of doctors, and they tell me that they spend a lot of time on paperwork, avoiding being sued, and navigating the insurance bureaucracy.
It was clear that the audience was instructed to keep their applause to a minimum. He was not getting the support we had previously heard him get. Even going back to the climate change town hall, I mentioned how loud the crowd was. There just was not a lot of that. Like, you could hear people cheering for him, but it seemed like those people were much further away, so it wasn't really picking up in the microphones.
We have to change the incentives so instead of revenue and activity, people are focused on our health in the healthcare system. And the Cleveland Clinic, where they're paid not based upon how many procedures they prescribe, shocker, they prescribe fewer procedures, and patient health stays the same or improves. That is the pitch to the American people.
Senator Booker.
Yang has policies specifically for this, where he wants to empower other medical professionals to have the ability to do more of those smaller procedures so that doctors are able to focus more on bigger issues. Like, he could have brought that in. He could have mentioned prescription drug costs. He could have mentioned that he's going to be pressing the pharmaceutical companies to actually start lowering the cost of prescription drugs. And if they refuse, he's actually going to begin having the government make those exact same medications so that we can bring those costs down. I'm saying all of this because the $1,000 a month is not the most important thing that Yang is talking about. All right, so we move into the immigration question, and this is the first question that I feel like was really strong for Yang.
Sorry.
My father grew up on a peanut farm in Asia with no floor, and now his son is running for president. That is the immigration story that we have to be able to share with the American people.
As far as the way he answered, I thought he gave a brilliant answer. Fantastic answer, fairly direct. I love to hear this from him. And from here on, things are kind of starting to look up for Yang.
If you look at our history, almost half of Fortune 500 companies were founded by their immigrants or children of immigrants, and rates of business formation are much higher in immigrant communities. We have to say to the American people, immigrants are positive for our economic and social dynamism, and I would return the level of legal immigration to the point it was under the Obama-Biden administration. I think we have to compete for talent, and I am the opposite of Donald Trump in many ways. He says build a wall. I'm going to say to immigrants, come to America, because if you come here, your son or daughter can run for president. The water is great, and this is where you want to build a company, build a family, and build a life. This country has been a magnet for human capital for generations. If we lose that, we lose something integral to our continued success, and that is where I would lead as president.
All right, now on the military question, this was definitely a challenge for Yang. This was definitely always going to be an issue. This is obviously going to be an issue he's always going to have to face, considering he hasn't done any military service. He's not he hasn't spent any time in office, so he was going to struggle here, especially considering the way it was framed.
To Mr. Yang, you share the stage, as you know, when we talk about troops in Iraq and Afghanistan with the vice president who was in the Situation Room, with senators who are on the Senate Armed Services, the Foreign Relations Committees, with an Afghanistan veteran who is on the stage tonight. As you share the stage with these candidates, what makes you the most qualified on this stage to be commander-in-chief?
He gave a decent response talking about how, he's got the temperament for it and he's going to do kind of what the American people want.
We've spent trillions of dollars to unclear benefits, lost thousands of lives, and thank you, Pete, for your service. And the goal has to be to rebuild the relationships that have made America strong for decades. I would lead our armed forces with restraint and judgment. What the American people want is simply a president who has the right values and point of view, and they can trust to make the right decisions when it comes to putting our young men and women into harm's way. And that's what I would do as president.
But here again, we don't have any specific policy. We don't hear him talking about something that he specifically plans on doing. Now, if you kind of compare this to the climate change town hall, you would have seen in that particular instance, that would have been an opportunity for him to bring in how he wants to form these alliances with these countries based on common goals, values, and kind of forming this path to the future. For people who are following him, this is probably not that big of a deal. We know that he has all these policies, but for someone who's new, it's going to be very difficult for him to overcome without being specific. When you talk about his policies, this was an opportunity for him to talk about veterans' health. He could have talked about suicide and the programs that he has for housing and reintegration into the community. Even if he didn't answer the question, he has things that he could have defaulted to that would have at least made people's ears perk up. He just didn't connect it. Now, once again, we get into the next question, and Yang is talking about corporate interests, and he nails this one. Why? Because once again, he brings in policy.
Why are we losing to the fossil fuel companies? Yeah. Why are we losing to the gun lobby and the NRA? And the answer is this. We all know, everyone on the stage knows, that our government has been overrun by money and corporate interests. Now, everyone here has a plan to try and curb those corporate interests, but we have to face facts. Money finds a way. Money will find its way back in. So what is the answer? The answer is to wash the money out with people-powered money. My proposal is that we give every American 100 democracy dollars that you can only give to candidates and causes that you like. This would wash out the lobbyist cash by a factor of 8 to 1. That is the only way we will win. And as someone running for president, I'll tell you, there's the people on one side and the money on the other. The only way for us to win is if we bring them together.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Lindsay.
He talks about how, we simply can't overcome the money that's already in politics. All we can do is wash it out with our own. He brings in his policy about democracy dollars, and it all connects once again. This is what Yang needs to continue to do. He needs to remind everyone that he not only does he know what these problems are, he already has a policy in mind to kind of resolve these problems. Yang also could have brought in the VAT tax. He could have brought in, how he's going to be penalizing these companies based on the fact that, they're not humanity first, they're profit first. I titled my video yesterday, "Will Yang play it safe in the third debate?" And I really feel like that's what he did. I feel like he didn't want to be too aggressive. He didn't want to confuse people maybe, because he could have thrown out way more policies. And honestly, the more I listen to him, I'm starting to think that this was all intentional. This was his plan all along. He didn't want to overwhelm people. I've been fairly critical of Yang so far, but I want you to pay attention to what he did with this education question. This question was why he's such a proponent of charter schools. And watch how he flips this.
Thousands of students are leaving traditional public schools and going to charter schools. You're the most vocal proponent on this stage for charter schools. You have said that Democrats who want to limit them are, quote, just jumping into bed with teachers' unions and doing kids a disservice. Why isn't taxpayer money better spent on fixing traditional public schools?
Let me be clear, I am pro-good school. We need to pay teachers more because the data clearly shows that a good teacher is worth his or her weight in gold. We need to lighten up the emphasis on standardized tests, which do not measure anything fundamental about our character or human worth. But here's the big one. The data clearly shows that 65 to 70% of our students' outcomes are determined outside of the school. We're talking about time spent at home with the parents, words read to them when they're young, stress levels in the house, income, type of neighborhood. We're putting money into schools, and educators know this. We're saying you're 100% responsible for educating our kids, but you can only control 30%. They all know this. The answer is to put money directly into the families and neighborhoods to give our kids a chance to learn and our teachers a chance to teach.
I want to pay teachers more. I want to lighten the emphasis on standardized tests. Yang crushed this question. And then he brilliantly brings everything back together by saying that most of the factors that go into a child's education have nothing to do with the school itself. And that's why he wants to empower individuals to be able to have a greater impact on their children's lives. He's really alluding to saying, with the freedom dividend, he didn't specifically state it, but which I think kind of made it miss the mark, but he was right there. The crowd definitely was feeling the response. I just really wish he was able to say, that's why giving every American over 18 $1,000 a month is gonna have such a big impact on their life, because we're gonna be able to bring those stress levels down. We're gonna be able to improve their quality of life. As a result, parents are gonna be able to spend more time with their children, make sure they're reading to their kids. Like, Yang clearly gets it. He just needed to tie it together a little bit better, but for the most part, I love this response. Finally, on Yang's closing statement, he kind of goes back to, I'm a politician. Here's a long drawn out story that's kind of not going anywhere. Like, is that echo chamber? To us, we know what he's getting at. We know why he's saying what he's saying. He's basically reminding us that I'm a different candidate. I'm trying to get us to stop focusing on just living and focusing on giving us an opportunity to fail. We get that. I think a lot of other people were wondering what he's talking about. What is his story? What is he talking about with this nonprofit? I don't know. Like, personally, I just didn't like the closer. I feel like this was another opportunity for him to really tie everything together. He could have done that. He could have kind of gone back to, his initial offer. He could have gone back to the $1,000 that he wants to give away tonight, or that he wants to give away to 10 families. He could have talked about, some of his policies. He could have explained the freedom dividend. He could have talked about automation. He didn't do any of those things, and honestly, it just really confused me. Final thoughts on last night's debate. Definitely want to say not having a crowd definitely played a role in Yang's performance. I think that he's used to getting those big crowd responses. Those really help him. They give him a moment to take a step back, think a little bit. There wasn't a lot of that. I will say that I feel like the strongest performer was definitely Bernie Sanders. The only thing that probably hurt him is his voice was a little bit off, which made him a little bit difficult to hear. He definitely sounded a little bit more angry last night. And there was just a lot of confusion, like going back to the healthcare question where Sanders and Warren and Biden were kind of getting into it. They weren't being clear on defining what they were talking about, on how many Americans would lose their private insurance, but they would still have insurance. They would still be covered. And there was a lot of that because it seemed like a lot of candidates weren't talking specific policy. They weren't really trying to explain things. It just seemed more like a high level conversation as opposed to each candidate speaking to the American public for the first time or really introducing themselves. Overall, Yang, like, he definitely had some moments where I was like, yes, that's it. But you know, everything from the whole $1,000 giveaway, just the way it came off, to a lot of the missed opportunities where he could have brought in policy. We knew he wasn't going to get a ton of time to speak, and I really wish he had made better use of the time he did get. But hey, if the internet is saying that the $1,000 giveaway did well, I'm all for it. I want to know that he did well. I'm probably a little bit more critical than most. I want him to win, you know what I mean? So I'm going to be looking at everything that could have possibly gone wrong or for every area of improvement. But if the general consensus is that he did well, then that's awesome. But I definitely don't feel the way I felt after watching the town hall the other night. With that said, you know, it was a decent performance. I think there was a lot of good takeaways. I feel like there was a lot of good moments. There's definitely some sound bites that are going to come out of this, and hopefully enough people slide in the polls. This will be an opportunity for Yang to rise up a little bit. So I would love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one.